It's just lovely. Just kind of dances around very gently on the heart. Well, we're in a new series this part of the new year. It's inspired by a book by Wayne Muller, it's called How Then Shall We Live? And it's about, he says that there's 4 questions that really, if you talk about all spiritual journeys, these are kind of the questions that shape it. Who am I, which we talked about for a couple of weeks. We talked about our identity, and we also talked last week about our shadow side. A lot of interest in the shadow side. Maybe it's the long shadows of winter. And what do I love, which we're going to talk about today. How shall I live knowing I will die? I mean, we all know that's what the end is going to be for this human existence. And what's the gift to the family of the earth that we give? What are we giving to that? So, Martin Luther King Jr. had some great ideas about who am I? And he said these were some things that should be in your life's blueprint when you're figuring out who you are and what you want to do and what you're going to be. He said, number 1 should be a deep belief in your own dignity. Wow, our own self-worth, right? To believe in your worth, your own somebodyness. You're not nobody. How many times somebody goes, who's that? Who came in? Nobody. Just me. Well, no, it's not nobody, just me. It's somebody. It's me. Feel that we count, feel that we have worth, and to feel that our life has ultimate significance. That truly, if we were not in this universe, the universe would be less. We are part of the whole, an integral part, an important part of the whole. So now we move into what do I love? And Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In other words, what we value, that's whatever that treasure is, whatever we value, that's where we invest this energy that comes from the center of our being. And he also said, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. So love was a really big thing in Jesus' teaching, this way of connecting. Now I'm going to make a little jump here about love. There's old Chinese teapot. And the teapot, after being seasoned for 100 years of making all this tea, you no longer have to put tea in it, because the pot is so seasoned, just water becomes tea by cooking it. And that's what happens to us. It's like whatever we do over and over, and I'm going to say that's what we love because we're investing time and energy and effort into it, putting our being into it, we too become seasoned, just like that 100-year-old Chinese teapot. You know, we constantly have that flavor, that seasoning within us. So this whole thing about love, and Valentine's Day is coming up, and love, so many times we think of flowers and roses and all the romance. But really, love, as much as it brings us joy, is also something that brings us hurt. It brings us grief. It's love that breaks our heart. If we didn't care, we wouldn't have the other side. So I'm not going to call this a shadow side of love, but it's the full side of love. We kind of think love is only all this stuff over here, when this other stuff that we don't talk about is just as important. Think about it. There's going to be one person in your life that's not supposed to ever let you down, and sometimes they will. Very probably they will. We're all going to have our hearts broken, and it doesn't get easier. I mean, you can go back to the pain of high school, and when you're an adult, it's not any easier just because you've been through it a few times. And we're going to break some hearts too. Yeah, we're going to be out, not because we're trying to be mean, it's just the way it goes in these relationships. We'll have fights with our best friend. If they're a good friend, we will make up on that. We'll blame a new love for things the old one did. Anybody ever do that? You kind of get mixed up, Oh, that's not you that does that all the time. And we'll also cry because time is passing so fast. And we know that eventually we'll lose somebody we love. I mean, I think about it, everybody in this room has lost somebody they loved. Whether it's just, the breakup of a friendship or relationship, but also our loved ones die. It's part of the process of life. And so we know whenever we enter into a being of lovingness with other people, making that connection, it comes with it an acceptance. There's also going to be some grief, some agony at some point in our life. Accidents that happen within the relationship, somebody's passing, somebody getting sick, things happen. And this is really the full scope of love. When you see both sides of it, you realize how big your heart has to be to hold that much love and to be able to express it. There was this man who had gotten a BMW. It had been his dream for years, and he loved this car so much. He's driving down the road singing, I love my BMW, I love my BMW. He's focused so much on the car, he hits a tree. Has this terrible accident. Good Samaritan comes by, and he goes, sir, are you okay? And he goes, my BMW, look at it. And the Good Samaritan says to him, sir, you've lost your left arm. And the guy goes, oh no, my Rolex. You know, I know, bad one, but we can get so focused on the things that we lose, we forget about the deep heart activities that we have. I mean, that's really our treasure. You know, our family, our friends, hugs, the simple things in life, loving the cool at the end of a summer day, you know, in the evening, or the smell of autumn of a fire burning. There's different things that trigger memories in us that just remind us of that love and connection that we have with things. Those are really the treasures of our heart. That's where we put our treasures. So I think this whole idea of what do we love is about figuring out what our fragrance is. And I mean this in the very great sense, not that anybody here smells. Right? It's about the fragrance of being. Because you realize that whoever we identify with, that we love, that we share, and take that great risk of having that heart connection, it really shapes us. And boy, is it courageous. It is real. Every person here has shown so much courage to be with other people, to have relationships, to take those risks, and to live through and grow through those disappointments, those griefs, those things that have happened. Huge, courageous people sitting here today. What an awesome, awesome group. It's like remembering that we are that teapot that keeps getting seasoned by what we loved. Whether it's the man with the BMW and the Rolex, or it's us with that treasure chest of family and friends and hugs and sweet moments and tender times together. It's also a good idea that when you're working in the garden that you plant what you love, right? You're not going to plant dandelions if you're wanting to have a green grass. Is perfect lawn, which I don't advise. But I remember one year when I planted some tomatoes. It had a really nice crop that year. And then the next couple of years I didn't get to it again, but the tomatoes did. They planted themselves, and they kept getting bigger and bigger, and you know, it was just a massive thing. I called it Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, because that's what it felt like out there. It was just, but I was so astounded by what they were doing. And it reminded me of a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, there are many kinds of seeds in us, both good and bad. Some were planted during our lifetime. Some were transmitted by our parents and society. Our ancestors and our parents have given us seeds of joy, peace, and happiness, as well as seeds of sorrow, anger, and so on. Well, I know with my tomato garden, I had to really clean it out, tear out the tomatoes to put in what I wanted to grow in the next season. And so it is with our life. Those seeds of sorrow, those seeds that we're planting within us, the seeds of joy and happiness. Sometimes we need to have a real clean out in order to allow what is really our treasure for it to grow within us, to grow within our lives. Always opportunities to plant new seeds. Okay, I want you to remember back when you were in third grade. It's a very almost cruel social structure. You know, you get made fun of for a lot of things. And this little boy was sitting at his desk one day, and all of a sudden he realized that he had wet his pants, and there was a little puddle on the floor. He didn't even know how it happened. And he's sitting there. Remember, you're in third grade. The end of his life, right? His life was over. This was it. The boys would make fun of him. The girls would never talk to him. And what do I do next? How do I get out of here? I mean, he's just frozen. And just at that time, as he's going through all these thoughts, he sees his teacher walking towards him, and he goes, oh my God, I've been found out. They know what happened. And as he's sitting there, you can feel the tension, almost on the verge of tears. You don't want to cry too, because that would make it even worse than wetting your pants. All of a sudden, one of his classmates, this little girl, comes walking down the aisle with a fishbowl, and she trips and dumps it on him. And he's soaking wet. In that moment, the teacher took everybody took pity on him. The poor guy, he's soaking wet. The teacher took him down to the gym, got him a pair of gym shorts to put on. Meanwhile, and the girls tried to help clean up the water. They go, "Oh, you're such a klutz, leave him alone, it's bad enough. Look at, he's all wet and everything." So everybody's feeling great sympathy for this boy where he thought he was going to be a pariah. A little later in the day when they went out for recess, the little girl got near him and whispered, "I wet my pants once too." Always time to plant those seeds of love. We never know we're going to have that opportunity to lift that really heavy fear off of somebody and replace it with an act of kindness that is just so great. She took the pain of being called a klutz and ridiculed, in order to show her love for this little boy. So it's about us really always seeing those opportunities around us, everywhere we look, to do those littlest things. Might be, spilling a goldfish bowl, it might be something bigger, who knows? The whole thing of what we love is really a spectrum that goes from that happiness of love to the sadness of love. It's a whole spectrum, and you can't have just part of it. If you're really authentically loving, you cannot pick and choose which part of love. And there's a lot of parts. There's the agape love, the brotherly love, the family love, of course, the romantic love. There's this whole spectrum of love, and really, the heart opens to all of it. The heart, I don't think, has a way to truly limit its ability to love if we're authentically loving. So this man here, his wife was in the hospital dying of cancer. And he's sitting out in the waiting room with his little 3-year-old daughter. And she says to him, "Daddy, hug me. Hug me." And he wrapped his arms around her and he hugged her really tightly as the nurse came in and said, "Your wife just died." This man had such a dilemma to be with his wife who's making a transition or to be with his little girl who needed him. This is a kind of dilemma, the spectrum that we have. Neither choice would have been right or wrong. But it's amazing how when we have that loss, it's like this huge expansion of our ability to love, our ability to appreciate, our ability to really grow our heart in absolutely amazing ways. Wayne Mueller in his book, this is a picture from MSU after the shooting last year, and we're coming up to the anniversary of it. And he noted that when people die, we gather not because we can bring them back, because we can heal their passing. We gather because we must. And I think what happens when we enter that grief part of love, we are so open. There is such a unhidden hunger to connect with other people, to share this feeling, this connection, knowing that God is that vibration of love. And we need to share what we have and also to have an infill from others around us, to have that great, deep, deep community of experience. Back in, it was 2006, down in Amish country, there was a horrific shooting. A man went in and shot a number of the young kids in school. This is 2006. That stuff's been going on for a long time. But this community had such an amazing example of what do they love? What are their values? And after the shooting, when they were interviewed, and you can imagine, Amish country down in Pennsylvania, this is a very subdued community, not a lot of technology or anything. And when they said, "Thank you. All we ask from you is our privacy and your prayers." I mean, they were really centered on being in community, knowing the strength of gathering together would bring them. And all their comments were loving and accepting and forgiving in a way that is beyond what I can conceive of even being able to do. They said things, the bad made a bad choice, and we forgave them. They didn't blame anybody else. They didn't blame politicians, they didn't blame guns, they didn't blame God. They didn't try to make sense of a senseless act. Our intellectual mind likes to make cause and effects. Why did this happen? So we can prevent it happening again. They accepted what it was and kept what they loved, kept true to what it was that they loved. They made a choice. They continued to live by their faith. They trusted in God. They walked in the light of peace and harmony, deep forgiveness. And when our country did what it does, it sent them money to help them whatever they're going to use it for. This community decided to send the money to the child of the murderer. Wow. Can you feel your heart wanting to get that big, that it could do that? I mean, it just brings out a yearning in me that is, I can't even imagine being that clear and that forgiving and holding that kind of treasure in my chest, holding that kind of expansiveness and acceptedness and forgiveness for everything. Well, those are on personal levels and community levels. There's this wonderful endeavor of love in Yankee, Peru. And this is up in the mountains, mountain country. Twice a year, the men have to go up to the mountains above the snow line with really just blankets on and their like gas-powered equipment. This is all shovels and hand stoves. They go up to the mountain to clear out the reservoir because it's the reservoir that brings the water down to the village. And they're up there for about 4 days. And when they're coming back down to the town, they play some horns so the town knows that they're coming, and they all come out and have this great celebration. The survival of the village is really dependent on this wonderful love and respect of community for each other, that they do this work hard, uncomfortable up in that cold, but it's just this wonderful expression of love, and you can imagine the celebration that goes on in the village as the water is flowing free again and as the men have all made it back and they know that they've made sacrifices in that. And, so many times the thinking in our society has been that you unite a country by having a common enemy. Whether, I don't want to name countries, I just heard about Korea on the news today. North Korea has given up wanting to be friends with South Korea, to live in peaceful coexistence. Because we have this saying, if we can point to an other and say, this is our enemy, then we come together. But what do we come together in? We come together out of hate, fear, control, wanting control or fear of being controlled, whatever that is. Think about what binds a country together when they're against something. Think how wonderful it would be if we could really cultivate a common love as a community. We know that light dispels darkness. It doesn't make the darkness less, it just brings it up to the right vibration. The same way we're coming together as a community in love, doing what we love. That's where our treasure is. What do we love? Do we love being against, or do we love being with, being for? So I think the great treasure of the heart about what we love is if we could conceive of ourselves right now bringing the world into a hospice of the old way of doing things, to let it die out. To find ways in our own life, how could we let this idea of being against another, being what divides us, and then being the midwife to bring in that new idea, that new feeling, that new way of being, that being in love, being in compassion, being in community is really the way to peace. The way to peace. Feel it right now in your heart. Do you have that kind of compassion? I call it an Amish level of compassion, hearing that story about that wonderful community. And are we willing to love enough to feel the pain of transition? We're going through this with our planet and with climate change. And it's inconvenient to make the changes to keep the energy level down. We have to do things differently. We might have to, oh my goodness, walk more. We might have to get our hands dirty. We might have to reuse bags instead of plastic throwaways, whatever that might be. That's that pain of transition as we learn that new way of being. Giving up fault-finding, giving up criticism, giving up the idea of otherness, or that somebody else, even the otherness that somebody else is going to do what needs to be done. Loving our world into peace. We're going to take a little time at a meditation and starting with this affirmation and take that little trip into the treasure where our heart is. Let's affirm together. I am God love. As I name myself this truth, I allow my love to bless all parts of myself so I can find the seed of peace within me. I am open to knowing who and what I really am. I look for the love and peace of spirit. I am only here for love. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. become conscious of your breath. How the cosmos loves us, breathing itself into us and breathing itself out. A continuing flow of that treasure of breath. A continuing expression of love as we share the breath that have been shared by millions through the eons. Breathing the love of the caveman. Breathing the love of the ancients. Breathing the love and oneness of the animals. Breathing the peace of our plants who emit this perfect jewel called oxygen to feed our bodies. As we breathe into that deep soul place, that sacred place, we feel that deep, stirring, soothing flow, the energetic flow of love. And consciously allow that to fill up our physical being. Feel that love vibration moving within your body. And as it moves, it grows. This priceless treasure. It grows until it exudes from every cell of our body. And as we sit here together today, that vibration fills this room. As it fills the room, it still continues to vibrate within us, never lessened by its expanse, only strengthened. And from this room, it oozes out into the world, blanketing our city with a sense of peace, harmony, and love. Not as a demand, but as an invitation. Beyond our city, through our state, flowing in that infinite speed of eternity and internality, covering the continent, the oceans, the atmosphere, until we feel that consciousness of humanity being in sync, birthing into that new way of being. Being love in everything in all forms. Being peace in everything and all forms. Living in the now, this holy instant. Living as the whole and holy expression of spirit that we are. And so it is. Amen.
You are
A room full of treasure. Oh, sacred love, sacred peace, sacred joy. So what do you love? I was thinking about an exercise this week is look in the mirror, and you know the old poem, how do I love thee, let me count the ways. How about how do I love me, let me count the ways? Because if we can't love ourselves, how can we love anybody else, as RuPaul would say. But I also thought this would be a good time to get certification in being a death doula for the way we try to do peace with war, which is so silly.